When my son married a woman who smiled at widows the way a banker smiles at collateral, I knew my warnings would only make him defend her harder. So I kept one secret from him, one old lakeside bait shop she called, a rotten little shack, and one sealed envelope my dead husband had placed in the hands of a country doctor. Long before anyone knew how ugly greed could become. Before I tell you what was really hidden there, take a moment to support the channel by liking this video and subscribing. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from today. This story is inspired by real-life lessons, but names and certain details have been changed for storytelling purposes. A year has passed since the morning I opened my eyes after surgery and saw my only son standing at the foot of my hospital bed with a new will in his hand. He thought I was too weak to understand. He thought anesthesia had blurred my mind. He thought pain medicine had made me small. He leaned close to the nurse and said, "She's not herself today. Mom gets confused when she's scared." Then he turned to the hospital lawyer they had dragged into my room and said, "We need to file this before anything happens." That was when my surgeon walked in. He was still wearing his blue cap. His glasses were low on his nose. In his left hand he held a yellow hospital folder. In his right hand he held the papers my son had spent months trying to erase, the real papers. And when my doctor laid them on the table beside my bed, my son's wife stopped smiling for the first time since I had met her. My name is Margaret Elaine Porter, but almost everybody in Beckett County calls me Maggie. I am 69 years old. I live in a small town in eastern Tennessee, about 20 minutes from the Virginia line, in a brick ranch house with a deep front porch, 2 rocking chairs, and a row of hydrangeas that my husband planted before his hands started shaking too badly to hold a shovel. My husband's name was Harold Porter. Harold was a quiet man. He was not the kind of husband who brought flowers every Friday or wrote love notes on the mirror. But every winter, before the first hard freeze, he checked the pipes under the house without being asked. Every Sunday morning, he warmed my car while I finished putting on lipstick for church. Every time I said I was worried about our son, he listened like my fear was not foolish. That was Harold's way of loving. He built things that lasted, not big things, at least not to other people. He never owned a mansion. He never wore a watch that cost more than a used car. But he built a life. He built a small boat repair business near Boone Lake. He bought an old bait shop beside the water when nobody wanted it because the roof sagged and the dock leaned sideways. He rebuilt that place board by board until fishermen started stopping there again for coffee, worms, line, and gossip. The sign out front said Porter's Landing. To most people, it was a little shop with minnow tanks, dusty shelves, and a back room that smelled like cedar, lake mud, and motor oil. To Harold, it was proof that a man could start with almost nothing and leave his family something solid. Our son Wesley grew up there. He learned to count change behind the register. He learned to tie knots on the dock. He learned to tell the difference between honest wear and careless damage by watching his father open boat engines and listen before touching anything. When Wesley was little, he loved that place. He would run down the dock in his sneakers with his hair sticking up and shout, "Daddy, Mr. Klein needs the blue plugs," like he was already managing the whole operation. Harold would wink at me and say, "That boy will own this lake someday." But boys grow up, and sometimes the world teaches them to be ashamed of the very things that raised them. Wesley left town after college. He moved to Knoxville, then Charlotte, then back to Knoxville after a sales job fell apart. He was not lazy. I will never say that about him. He worked hard when the work made him feel important. But he had a hunger in him that Harold never had. He wanted people to see success before he had earned peace. He wanted the suit before the savings. He wanted the house before the foundation. He wanted respect from strangers more than trust from family. Still, he was my boy. When Harold died, Wesley came home and stood beside me at the cemetery while rain dotted the shoulders of his black coat. He held my umbrella even though his own hair was wet. He cried when the pastor read from Ecclesiastes. Afterward, at the house, he sat at the kitchen table and stared at Harold's empty chair. "I don't know how to be here without him," he said. I put my hand over his. "You don't have to know today." That was 3 years before Brianna came into our lives. Her full name was Brianna Lee Mercer before she became Brianna Porter. She had glossy auburn hair, pale nails, and a voice that could turn soft whenever older people were nearby. She worked in real estate marketing, or at least that was what she told us. Her pictures online showed bright kitchens, granite counters, front doors with wreaths, and captions about legacy living and building generational wealth. When Wesley brought her to my house for the first time, she arrived carrying a lemon-pound cake from a bakery and wearing a cream-colored dress that looked simple until you noticed the shoes. She hugged me before I was ready. "Mrs. Porter," she said, "I have heard so much about you." I smiled because that is what you do when your son looks nervous and hopeful. "Call me Maggie." "Oh, I couldn't," she said. "Not yet." At the time, I thought that was respect. Now I know it was performance. She walked through my house slowly, complimenting the right things. The old family Bible on the entry table, Harold's framed navy photograph, the hand-stitched quilt my mother made in 1978. She asked questions that sounded sweet if you were not listening carefully. "How long have you lived here? Did Harold build the porch himself? Is Wesley an only child? Does the lake place still belong to the family?" That last question came while I was pouring tea. Wesley laughed from the living room. "Porter's Landing? Mom won't let that thing go. Dad loved it too much." Brianna tilted her head. "Oh, the bait shop," she said it lightly, but I heard the small scrape of dismissal underneath. "It's more than a bait shop," I said. She gave me a smile with no warmth behind it. "Of course, sentimental value." I carried the tea to the table and noticed Wesley glance at me like I had embarrassed him. That was the first small crack, not the last. They married 8 months later in a vineyard outside Asheville. It was a beautiful wedding, the kind people remember, because the flowers looked like something from a magazine, and the music started at exactly the right moment. Brianna planned everything. Wesley mostly nodded. At the reception, she danced with my son under strings of lights while guests lifted glasses and said they looked perfect together. And they did, from a distance. But grief and age teach you to watch hands. During the speeches, Wesley reached for his water glass twice. Both times, Brianna touched his wrist before he drank, gentle enough that no one would notice. He stopped mid-motion and waited until she leaned close and whispered something. Later, when he came over to my table, he said, "Mom, you okay? You seem quiet." "I'm just watching," he smiled. "You always are." Brianna appeared beside him as if she had been pulled by a string. "Wes, sweetheart, the photographer needs us." He looked at me for half a second, then followed her. That was how it began. Half seconds, small pauses, tiny changes you could explain away if you wanted to. I did not want to. Still, I kept quiet because I knew what happens when a mother criticizes the woman her son loves. He stops hearing the warning and starts hearing jealousy. He stops seeing the pattern and starts defending the person creating it. So I watched. I listened. I waited. Porter's Landing became the first thing Brianna pretended not to care about. She joked about it at Sunday dinner. "I still can't believe your family owns waterfront property and uses it to sell worms." Wesley laughed too loudly. "It's not exactly waterfront property like you mean." Brianna looked at me. "But it is on the lake." "Yes," I said, "and the land is yours. It is in a family trust." Her fork paused over her plate. "A trust?" I looked straight at her. Harold believed in paperwork. She smiled, but her eyes changed. That was when I knew she had been waiting for that word. Trust. A small word, but it can make greedy people lean forward. Wesley wiped his mouth with his napkin. "Mom and Dad set up some old arrangement years ago. It's nothing dramatic." Brianna's voice stayed light. "I think it's smart. Families should know how things are structured. Surprises create conflict." I almost laughed, not because she was wrong, because Harold had said almost the same thing when he was dying. By then, Parkinson's had taken much of his strength. His hands trembled, his steps shortened. Some days his voice came out thin and tired, but his mind stayed sharp until the end. 3 weeks before he died, he asked me to drive him to Dr. Nathaniel Rowe's office. Dr. Rowe had been our family doctor for nearly 25 years. He had delivered bad news to us gently, stitched Wesley's chin after a bicycle crash, and sat with Harold through the early symptoms when we still hoped it was something simple. That afternoon, Harold brought a sealed manila envelope with him. On the front, he had written in block letters, "For Maggie, only if family pressure begins during medical weakness." I asked him what that meant. He said, "It means I know our boy. I love him, but I know him." I hated that sentence. "No," I said. Wesley wouldn't. Harold looked out the truck window at the mountains. "Maybe not alone," I did not answer. Inside Dr. Rowe's office, Harold asked the nurse to give us a private minute. Then he handed the envelope to Dr. Rowe. "Nate," he said, "you know I'm of sound mind." Dr. Rowe looked uncomfortable. "I do. You know Maggie is of sound mind too." Yes. If the day ever comes when somebody tries to say otherwise for money, I need you to remember this. Dr. Rowe took the envelope slowly. Harold, I'm not an attorney, no, but you are a witness, and you know the difference between illness and incompetence. That was the first time I saw the real fear underneath my husband's calm. The envelope stayed with Dr. Rowe. I tried to ask Harold about it later, but he only said, "The papers are protection, not punishment. I pray you never need them." After he died, I almost forgot about that envelope. Almost. Then Brianna came along, and I started remembering every word. The bait shop was not the only thing Harold left protected. There was the house, of course. Some savings, a modest investment account, a life insurance policy that had paid out after Harold's death. But the true value was Porter's Landing, not because of the bait shop itself, because of the land. Years after Harold bought it, the county approved new lakefront development nearby. Developers started calling. One offered more money than Harold had made in 10 years. He turned it down. That place is not for condos, he told me. It is for family. Before he died, he worked with our attorney, Lenora Pike, to place Porter's Landing into a trust that protected it from creditors, divorce claims, and impulsive sale. The trust allowed me to use income from the property while I lived. After my death, it would not go straight to Wesley. It would be managed for the benefit of Wesley's daughter, if he ever had one, or any future grandchildren. At the time, there was no grandchild. Then Harper was born. Harper Grace Porter arrived 9 months after the wedding, 6 pounds 9 ounces, with dark hair, round cheeks, and Harold's stubborn chin. The first time I held her, my chest hurt with both joy and grief. Wesley stood beside the hospital bed, crying like he had at his father's grave. "Mom," he whispered. "She has Dad's mouth." Brianna looked tired and beautiful against the pillows. "She has opportunity," she said. I thought she meant life. Later, I understood she meant leverage. Harper became my heart walking around outside my body. I babysat on Tuesdays. I kept extra diapers in the hall closet. I learned which songs made her stop crying. When she was old enough to walk, I took her to Porter's Landing and let her drop breadcrumbs near the dock for the ducks. Brianna hated that. "She comes home smelling like fish," she said one afternoon, lifting Harper from my arms. "She was outside," I said. "She has sensitive skin." She was laughing. Brianna smiled without looking at me. Children laugh at anything. Wesley stood behind her, checking his phone. I wanted him to defend me. I wanted him to say, "Mom knows what she's doing." I wanted him to remember all the summers he came home with muddy knees and sunburned ears. He said nothing. That was how he began disappearing. Not all at once. Inch by inch. First, he stopped calling me on his drive home from work. Then he stopped coming by without Brianna. Then every visit had a time limit. Then every conversation sounded like he was repeating words someone else had given him. "Mom, you need to think about simplifying. Mom, maintaining 2 properties at your age is a lot. Mom, Brianna knows the market. You should listen. Mom, trusts can be restrictive." Mom, Dad meant well, but things change. Things change. That is what people say when they want you to feel guilty for keeping a promise. I did not argue. Not then. I had learned something from Harold during his illness. Panic wastes energy. Documentation saves it. So I bought a black notebook from the Dollar General and wrote the date on the first page. September 14. Brianna asked whether Porter's Landing was technically liquid if medical bills became necessary. Wesley looked embarrassed but did not stop her. Harper was in the next room watching cartoons. I told them my medical bills were covered. Brianna said, "For now." I closed the notebook and sat with my hand on the cover. It felt foolish at first, writing things down like a suspicious old woman. I almost tore the page out. Then I heard Harold's voice in my memory. "If somebody makes you doubt what happened, write it down before they rewrite it for you." So I kept writing, October 2. Wesley said Brianna thinks I should add him to my checking account for emergencies. I asked what emergencies. He said, "Just in case you fall or get confused." I asked if he thought I was confused. He looked away. October 19, Harper told me, "Mommy says Grandma's house is too cluttered and old people fall when they keep too much stuff." Harper said it like she was repeating a commercial. November 7. Brianna asked for the name of my estate attorney. Said she wanted to make sure family expectations were aligned. I told her Harold and I already aligned them. November 24. Thanksgiving. Brianna brought a sweet potato casserole and a folder. That was the first holiday I understood. She was not just curious. She waited until after dinner. Harper was asleep on the couch with a blanket over her legs. Wesley was loading plates into the dishwasher. With the tired obedience of a man trying not to start a fight, Brianna sat across from me at the kitchen table and opened the folder. "I know this may feel uncomfortable," she said, "but I believe healthy families talk about succession." "Succession," I repeated. She nodded as if we were in a board meeting. "Your assets, the house, the lake property, the trust. Wesley is your only child. It would be painful for him to be blocked by outdated documents when the time comes." Wesley turned off the faucet. "Bree, maybe not tonight." She did not look at him. "I'm trying to prevent future stress." I looked at the folder. I saw printed pages, a chart, property estimates. One page had a photograph of Porter's Landing taken from the road. My breath slowed. "When did you take that picture?" she smiled. "It's public-facing." "That's not what I asked." Wesley dried his hands on a towel. "Mom, don't make it weird." That sentence hurt more than Brianna's folder. "Don't make it weird." As if I was the one who had brought property charts to Thanksgiving, Brianna folded her hands. "We're not asking for anything today. We just think you should update your will." "My will is updated." "Recently?" "Yes, with someone modern." I stood up and carried my plate to the sink, even though it was already clean. "Brianna," I said, "my husband's lawyer is modern enough to read." Her cheeks colored, just a little. Wesley sighed. "Mom," I turned to him, "your father made decisions for a reason." His face tightened. "Dad's gone." The kitchen went quiet. Even the old refrigerator seemed to stop humming. I looked at my son and saw a stranger standing in a room full of his childhood. "Yes," I said softly. "He is." Brianna closed the folder. I wrote that down after they left. But that was not the part that scared me most. The part that scared me came 2 weeks later, when I picked Harper up from preschool and found her sitting on the curb with her teacher because nobody had come. Brianna was supposed to get her at 2:30. It was 3:15. Harper ran to me with tears dried in tracks on her cheeks. "Mommy forgot me." I buckled her into my car seat and called Wesley. No answer. I called Brianna. She picked up on the 4th ring, sounding irritated. "I'm in a showing." Harper was waiting outside preschool. There was a pause. "Well, you got her, didn't you?" My hand tightened on the steering wheel. She was scared. She needs to learn flexibility. When Wesley called me back an hour later, he sounded exhausted. "Mom, Bree had a client emergency. Don't turn this into a thing." "A thing? She says you like catching mistakes." I looked into the rearview mirror at Harper, who was humming quietly to herself with her thumb in her mouth. "Wesley, your daughter was alone." "She wasn't alone. The teacher was there." "That is not the point." He lowered his voice. "Please don't start. Things are tense enough." "With whom?" He did not answer. That night, after I took Harper home, she whispered something while I helped her take off her coat. "Grandma?" "Yes, baby." "Daddy sleeps in the guest room when Mommy is mad." I froze with my hand on the zipper. "How often does Mommy get mad?" Harper looked toward the hallway. "She says Daddy makes her life smaller." I kissed her forehead and said nothing. Then I went home and wrote everything down. People think documentation feels cold. It does not. Not when you are writing about someone you love. It feels like carving pain into paper, because you are afraid nobody will believe you later. By Christmas, Wesley had lost weight. He came to my house alone on December 22, which surprised me. He stood on the porch with a box of store-bought cookies and his collar turned up against the wind. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked through the living room slowly, looking at the tree, the stockings, the framed photograph of Harold holding him as a newborn. His eyes stayed on that picture too long. "You okay?" I asked. He gave a small laugh. "Everybody keeps asking me that. Maybe because you don't look okay." He sat at the kitchen table. For a moment I saw my son again. Not the man with rehearsed phrases, not Brianna's husband. "My boy." "Mom," he said, "did Dad ever think I was weak?" The question broke something open in me. No, he never said it. Never. Wesley rubbed his face with both hands. "Brianna says I avoid responsibility. She says I act like a kid when it comes to family money. Do you believe that?" "I don't know what I believe anymore." I sat across from him. "Then stay in this room until you remember." His eyes filled, but he looked away before tears fell. Then his phone rang. Brianna's name lit up the screen. He stared at it like it was a test. "Answer it," I said gently. He did. I could hear her voice through the phone, sharp enough to cut through the air. "Where are you?" "At Mom's."
"Why?"
"I brought cookies." A pause. "Come home. Harper has a cough." Wesley stood immediately. Is she okay? She needs her father. He looked at me helplessly. I have to go. I wanted to say, no, you do not. But he was already putting on his coat. At the door, he turned back. Mom, don't take it personal. She just gets nervous about boundaries. Boundaries do not sound like orders, Wes. He flinched, then he left. 2 days after Christmas, Brianna called and told me they were not coming for New Year's. Wesley needs space from emotional pressure, she said. Did Wesley say that? We are a family unit, Maggie. Decisions are shared. Put him on the phone. He's resting. It is 11 in the morning. She sighed. You know, this is exactly what I mean. I hung up before I said something I could not take back. That was the first time I called Lenora Pike. Lenora was our estate attorney. She was in her early 60s, with silver hair cut just below her chin and a voice that made nonsense ashamed of itself. She had handled Harold's trust, our wills, the property transfers, and every document my husband had insisted on signing while he still could. When I told her about Brianna's questions, she did not sound surprised. Has anyone asked you to sign anything? Not yet. They will. The certainty in her voice chilled me. What should I do? Do not sign anything outside my office. Do not discuss account numbers. Do not let anyone photograph documents. And Maggie? Yes, a medical plan. I looked out the window at the empty bird feeder swinging in the wind. What kind of plan? The kind families need when somebody tries to use illness as opportunity. I thought of Harold's envelope at Dr. Rowe's office. I think Harold already started one. Lenora was silent for a second. Then we should finish it. In January, I met Lenora at her office on Main Street. The building smelled like paper, coffee, and old wood. She brought out my file, thick and neatly tabbed. We reviewed everything. My will, the trust, the deed to Porter's Landing, my power of attorney, my medical directives, the beneficiary protections for Harper. Nothing had been left loose. Harold had made sure Wesley could never sell the lake property outright. He could manage it only if he met certain conditions. No active substance abuse, no unresolved fraud claims, no transfer to a spouse, no borrowing against it for personal debt. If there was evidence of coercion, undue influence, elder exploitation, or fraud, control would move immediately to a neutral trustee until Harper turned 25. I stared at the language. Harold wrote this. Lenora smiled faintly. Harold requested it. I wrote it. He was very specific. I swallowed. He thought Wesley might do this. He thought Wesley could be influenced by someone who valued assets more than family. That hurt, not because I blamed Harold. Because he had seen farther than I meant to. Lenora slid another document toward me. This is your updated medical capacity statement. Dr. Rowe can complete it. It confirms you understand your estate plan and do not want changes during acute illness, hospitalization, surgery, heavy medication, or recovery unless I am present and an independent physician confirms capacity. I touched the paper. That sounds severe. It is protection. From my own son? Lenora's face softened. From pressure. Sometimes pressure wears a familiar face. I signed where she told me to sign. Then I drove to Dr. Rowe's office. He had more gray in his beard than the last time I had seen him. When I mentioned Harold's envelope, he leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. I wondered when this day would come. You knew? I hoped I was wrong. He opened the locked cabinet behind his desk and took out the manila envelope. The paper had yellowed slightly at the edges. Harold's handwriting was still clear. For Maggie, only if family pressure begins during medical weakness. My hands shook when Dr. Rowe handed it to me. Do you want me to stay? He asked. I nodded. Inside were copies of legal documents, a letter from Harold, and a small flash drive sealed in plastic. The letter began, My dearest Maggie, if you are reading this, then somebody has mistaken your kindness for weakness. I had to stop there. Dr. Rowe passed me a tissue without speaking. I read the rest slowly. Harold wrote that he loved Wesley with his whole heart, but he had watched our son become vulnerable to approval. He wrote that if Wesley married someone controlling, money would become the doorway through which that person entered our family. He wrote that Porter's Landing was never meant to be a prize for the loudest voice. It was meant to protect the smallest one. At the time he wrote it, Harper did not exist. Still, he wrote, If there is ever a grandchild, protect that child first. The flash drive contained a video. Dr. Rowe played it on his office computer. Harold appeared on the screen wearing his brown cardigan, seated in our living room. His hands trembled in his lap, but his eyes were clear. Maggie, he said on the video, I do not know what shape trouble will take, I hope it never comes. But if someone tries to change your will while you are ill, or says you are confused when you are not, remember this. You owe nobody your silence when their plans require your weakness. His voice cracked then. Wesley, if you are watching this, I love you. But love does not give you permission to steal from your mother or your child. If someone is pushing you, step away before you lose more than property. I covered my mouth. Dr. Rowe looked down at his desk. Harold continued. Porter's Landing holds more than land. The old back office safe has copies of everything. Maggie knows the combination. Lenora has the originals. Dr. Rowe has my statement. If anyone breaks in looking for money, they will find a mirror. The video ended. I sat in that office for a long time after the screen went black. Then Dr. Rowe said, Maggie, I need to ask you something as your doctor and your friend. All right. Are you afraid of them? I thought about Brianna's folder, Wesley's tired eyes, Harper waiting outside preschool, the questions about wills, the way my son said confused like he was trying the word on. I am not afraid of what they can take, I said. I am afraid of what he will become if nobody stops him. Dr. Rowe nodded. Then we stop it legally. From that day forward, my notebook became a file. Lenora told me to save texts, voicemails, letters, envelopes, call logs, and any written request about assets. She told me to write conversations immediately afterward and date them. She told me to keep copies outside the house. So I rented a small safe deposit box at First Valley Bank. I gave a backup folder to Lenora, and I returned to Porter's Landing for the first time in weeks. The bait shop was closed for winter. The lake sat gray and still under a low sky. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The bell above the door gave its tired little ring. Everything smelled like Harold, dust, cedar, old coffee, rope, outboard grease behind the counter. His handwriting still marked the shelves. Hook's line, spark plugs, do not sell Earl the cheap tape. I laughed and cried at the same time. In the back office, behind a crooked calendar from 2016, was the old floor safe. Harold had installed it beneath a loose section of plywood. Most people thought the back office only held broken reels and tax records. Brianna had once called it a hoarder closet with fish hooks. I moved the plywood, knelt carefully, and turned the dial. Harold's birthday. My birthday, Wesley's birthday. The safe opened. Inside were copies of the trust, deed, insurance documents, old tax records, photographs of the property before improvements, business ledgers, and a second sealed envelope from Harold. This one said, "When the bait shop becomes bait." I sat on the floor and opened it. Maggie, greedy people often believe old places are valuable only because of land. Let them. The more they underestimate memory, the more careless they become. If somebody comes here looking for a deed, make sure the cameras are working. I looked up slowly. Cameras? I had forgotten. Years earlier, after some teenagers broke into boats along the dock, Harold installed a security system. Later, when his illness worsened, he upgraded it with help from our neighbor, Russell Kane, a retired sheriff's deputy who lived 2 roads over. Russell loved gadgets, black coffee, and minding other people's safety. I called him from the bait shop. He answered on the second ring. Maggie Porter. You finally need me to fix that frozen pipe? No. I need to know if Harold's cameras still work. Russell went quiet. Why? Because I think someone may come looking. He was at Porter's Landing in 20 minutes. Russell was 68, broad-shouldered, with a knee that clicked when he climbed steps and eyes that missed very little. He had served 30 years in county law enforcement and retired with a reputation for being fair, stubborn, and impossible to rush. He checked the cameras, the motion sensors, the back door alarm, and the old recorder hidden above the office ceiling tiles. Harold did this right, he said. Can you make it better? He looked at me. How much trouble are we expecting? The family kind, he sighed. That's usually the ugliest. Over the next week, Russell updated the system, added a camera facing the dock, replaced the side door lock, and connected alerts to my phone and his. He did not ask many questions at first. That was one reason I trusted him. But one afternoon, while he was on a ladder near the back office, Brianna pulled into the lot. I saw her white SUV before she saw me. She stepped out wearing sunglasses, a camel-colored coat, and boots too clean for the gravel. Maggie, she called, surprised but not pleased. I didn't know you were here. It's my place. Her smile tightened. Of course, I just meant in winter. Russell climbed down from the ladder. Brianna looked at him. And you are? Russell Kane. He's helping with maintenance, I said. Brianna's eyes moved to the camera in his hand. Security. Old buildings need watching, Russell said. She laughed lightly. Is there something worth stealing? I held her gaze. You would be surprised what people try to take when they think nobody is looking. For 1 second, her face went still. Then she turned back into Brianna. I came because Wesley mentioned maybe photographing the property for insurance records. Wesley did not tell me. He probably forgot. Then he can remember and call. She looked toward the back office. I could just take a few pictures. No. The word came out calm but firm. Brianna's nostrils flared. Well, I hope you know we're only trying to help. Russell coughed into his hand like he was hiding a laugh. Brianna left without taking pictures. That evening, Wesley called. Mom, did you embarrass Brianna at the lake? No. She said you treated her like a criminal. She wanted access to records without asking me. She's my wife. She is not my trustee. He went silent, then he said, That's the problem. You keep making everything legal instead of family. I closed my eyes. Legal is what protects family when feelings fail. Dad really got in your head with all this. No, Wesley. Your father kept my head clear. He hung up, I wrote it down. I thought the journal was enough. I was wrong. In February, I had my first spell. It happened in the grocery store near the canned tomatoes. A sharp pressure rose under my breastbone, moved into my jaw, and made the aisle tilt slightly. I gripped the cart until my knuckles went white. Mrs. Alvarez from church saw me and asked if I was all right. I said yes. That is what women my age say when we do not want to cause a scene. I drove home slowly, sat in my car in the driveway, and waited for the pain to pass. It did, mostly. 2 days later, it happened again while I was folding towels. This time I called Dr. Rowe. He sent me to a cardiologist. By March, I knew I needed surgery. Not emergency surgery, but serious enough to require planning. A valve repair. Hospital stay. Anesthesia. Recovery. All the words that make greedy people hear opportunity if they are already listening for it. I told Wesley at my kitchen table. He stared at me. Heart surgery? The doctor says I am a good candidate. When? April 17. His face softened with genuine fear. Mom. I reached for his hand. He let me take it. For a few seconds, he was my son again. Then Brianna, who had been quiet beside him, asked, Will you be under general anesthesia? I looked at her. Yes. For how long? Wesley turned. Bree. What? I'm asking medically. No, I said. You're asking practically. Her cheeks colored. I'm sorry if concern sounds offensive to you. I did not answer. She leaned forward. Do you have your medical power of attorney updated? Yes. Is Wesley listed? No. Wesley pulled his hand from mine. What? I kept my voice even. My sister Patricia is listed first. Lenora is listed second for legal coordination. His eyes filled with hurt before anger covered it. Your sister lives in Ohio. She can answer a phone. I'm your son. Yes, and you don't trust me. I looked at him for a long moment. I trust the boy I raised. I am trying to protect him from the man he becomes when he is afraid of disappointing his wife. The room went dead quiet. Brianna stood. That is cruel. Wesley stared at me as if I had slapped him. Maybe you should recover alone then. He left before I could speak. Brianna followed him, but at the door she turned back. You know, Maggie, one day you're going to need family, and paperwork won't hold your hand in a hospital bed. She was wrong. Paperwork did not hold my hand. It saved my life. After they left, I cried until my chest hurt enough to scare me. Then I called Lenora. It has started, I said. She did not ask what I meant. We move everything into hospital protocol. The next 3 weeks were not easy. Brianna began sending texts that looked caring on the surface. Have you considered how stressful your legal setup is for Wesley? Wouldn't it give you peace to simplify before surgery? I found a wonderful elder planning consultant who helps families avoid confusion. Wes is losing sleep because he doesn't know what you want. You are punishing him for loving his wife. I did not respond except once. My estate plan is complete. Please direct legal questions to Lenora Pike. After that, Wesley called me. Mom, stop treating Brianna like an enemy. Then tell her to stop behaving like one. She's trying to help me. With what? With not being left helpless if something happens to you. You are 38 years old. That's not fair. No. What is not fair is using my surgery to discuss inheritance. He breathed hard into the phone. You know what? Maybe Dad should have trusted me more. That one struck deep. I sat down. Your father loved you. Love and trust aren't the same thing. No, I said. They are not. He hung up again. A week before surgery, Russell called me. His voice had changed. Maggie, are you sitting down? I can be. Sit. I sat at my kitchen table. What happened? I was at the gas station by the interstate this morning. Wesley and Brianna were there. I didn't mean to listen, but they were standing near the ice machine, and she was not using an indoor voice. My fingers went cold. What did she say? He hesitated. She said, "Once she's under, you need to get the form signed before Patricia gets involved." Wesley said, "What if she wakes up?" Brianna said, "Then she'll wake up to a completed plan." I closed my eyes. Russell continued quieter. Then she said, "Doctors call old women confused every day. Nobody questions family when family looks organized." For a moment, all I could hear was the clock above my stove. "Maggie, I'm here." I made notes as soon as I got in my truck. Time, place, exact words as best I remembered. "I'll sign a statement." "Thank you." "There's more." I gripped the phone. She mentioned a mobile notary. That call changed everything. Not because I was surprised. Because until then, part of me still hoped Wesley would stop. Hope can be stubborn, even when evidence is standing in the room holding a flashlight. That afternoon I met with Lenora, Dr. Rowe, and Dr. Anika Sloan, my heart surgeon, in a conference room at the hospital. Dr. Sloan was in her 40s, direct, calm, with kind eyes that did not soften the truth. She had done hundreds of valve repairs. She explained risk like a person who respected fear but refused to feed it. Lenora laid the documents on the table. "We have reason to believe Mrs. Porter may face coercive legal pressure around the time of surgery." Dr. Sloan looked at me. "From family?" I nodded. "My son and daughter-in-law." Her jaw tightened, but her voice stayed professional. "Tell me what you need." Lenora explained the plan. Dr. Rowe would complete a capacity evaluation the morning before surgery and place it in my medical chart. Lenora would file a notice with the hospital that no estate documents were to be signed, witnessed, notarized, or processed during my hospitalization without her direct presence and independent physician approval. My sister Patricia would be listed as medical decision-maker. Security would be alerted discreetly. Visitors could be limited. Dr. Sloan listened carefully, then she said, "I want copies in my surgical file too." Lenora blinked. "That is unusual." "I don't care." Dr. Sloan looked at me. "I have seen families behave badly when patients are vulnerable. Mostly it is subtle. Sometimes it is not. If anyone claims you are confused after surgery, I want the baseline in my hand." That was how my surgeon became part of the story. Not because she wanted drama. Because she understood that healing a body sometimes means guarding a person from the people waiting beside the bed. 2 days before surgery, I asked Wesley to come over alone. To my surprise, he did. He looked thinner than ever. His shirt collar hung loose. There were dark circles under his eyes. I had placed the black notebook on the kitchen table, along with a folder of printed texts and a photograph of Harold, holding Wesley at Porter's Landing when he was 7. Wesley noticed the notebook. "What's that?" "The truth in dates." He stiffened. "Mom, sit down. I don't want another lecture." "It is not a lecture. It is a record." He remained standing. I opened the notebook to the first page. September 14. Brianna asked whether Porter's Landing was technically liquid if medical bills became necessary. His face changed. "Why are you writing things down?" "Because you keep forgetting what happens after she explains it to you." "That's insulting." I kept reading. October 2. Wesley asked to be added to my checking account for emergencies. "I was worried about you." November 24. Brianna brought property estimates to Thanksgiving dinner. He looked away. December 22. Wesley asked if his father thought he was weak. His eyes snapped back to mine. "Don't." I softened my voice. "You were hurting that day." He swallowed. I turned a page. January 9. Harper said Daddy sleeps in the guest room when Mommy is mad. His face went pale. "Harper said that?" "Yes." "She shouldn't have." "She is a child, Wesley. Children tell the truth before adults teach them to hide it." He sat down slowly. For the first time, he looked afraid. I slid the text messages across the table. Then Russell's written statement. Then the medical plan. Wesley read the first page. His mouth tightened. Russell misunderstood. He wrote down her exact words. "He hates Brianna." Russell barely knows Brianna. Wesley stood again, but not with anger this time. With panic. "You don't understand what it's like." "Then tell me." He walked to the sink and gripped the edge. "She says I'm passive. She says everybody in this family treats me like a boy. She says Dad controlled everything from the grave. She says if I don't take charge now, Harper will grow up thinking I'm weak." "Does she call it taking charge when she tells you what to say?" He looked at me, and there were tears in his eyes. I don't know how it got like this. That was the first honest thing he had said in months. I stood slowly and went to him. My son, listen to me. Control does not always arrive with shouting. Sometimes it arrives with advice, sometimes with concern, sometimes with a folder and a smile. He shook his head. You think I'm stealing from you. I think you are standing close to a cliff and calling it a viewpoint. He began crying then, quietly, like a grown man ashamed of making sound. I put my arms around him. For 1 minute he let me. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. Brianna, his body changed instantly. I felt it, the stiffening, the withdrawal, the fear. Don't answer, I whispered. I have to. No, Wesley, you don't. But he did. He stepped into the hallway. I heard his voice. I'm at Mom's. No. She showed me some things. No, I didn't say I believed her. A pause, then his tone flattened. I'm coming. When he returned, his face had closed. Brianna says this is manipulation. I was tired then. So tired my bones felt hollow. Of course she does. He picked up the papers. I put my hand on them. These stay here. His eyes hardened. Mom, you need help. So do you. He left, and I knew the brief opening had closed. By the time he tried to change my will, the trap had already begun forming around him. But I did not know how far he would go to prove he was not weak. The morning of my surgery was cold and rainy. Patricia flew in from Ohio the night before and slept in my guest room. She is 4 years younger than me, sharp-tongued, fiercely loyal, and the only person on earth who can make me eat toast when I am terrified. At 5 in the morning, she drove me to the hospital. The roads shone black under the streetlights. I watched wipers sweep rain across the windshield and thought about Harold. I thought about the way he held my hand during Wesley's birth and whispered, "You're doing fine, Maggie girl." Even though I was yelling at him that nothing was fine. Patricia glanced over. You thinking about Harold? He'd be proud of you. I shook my head. He'd be heartbroken. Both can be true. At the hospital, Dr. Rowe met us before pre-op. He completed the final capacity statement in front of Patricia and a hospital nurse. He asked me the date, my name, why I was there, what surgery I was having, who my medical decision-maker was, whether I wanted to change my estate documents. No, I said clearly. Has anyone pressured you to change them? Yes. Who? My son Wesley Porter and his wife Brianna Porter. The nurse's pen paused for half a second, then continued. Dr. Rowe's face was sad but steady. Do you understand your current will and trust? Yes. Do you want them to remain in effect? Yes. He signed the form. The nurse witnessed it. Patricia signed as present. Dr. Sloan came in later and reviewed the same. Then Lenora arrived in a navy suit at 6:30 in the morning, carrying a leather folder. You did not have to come this early, I said. Yes, I did. She placed copies of all legal notices in my chart, handed one to the charge nurse, one to hospital security, and one to Dr. Sloan. Then she leaned close to me. Maggie, listen carefully. If you wake up and someone tries to tell you something has changed, do not argue. Ask for me. I understand, no matter what they say. I understand. Patricia squeezed my hand. At 7:15, Wesley arrived, alone. For a moment, hope lifted in me again. He looked awful. Wet hair, wrinkled shirt, red eyes. He stood near the curtain and could barely look at me. Where is Brianna? Patricia asked. Parking. That one word said enough. He came to my bedside. Mom. Hi, sweetheart. His face twisted. I don't want you to die. That broke me. I reached for him. I am not planning to. He held my hand with both of his. I'm sorry, he whispered. I searched his face. For what? He opened his mouth. Then Brianna stepped into the room. Everything changed. She wore black slacks, a beige coat, and a smooth expression of concern. She carried a tote bag. Maggie, she said softly. We are all praying for you, Patricia muttered. That makes one of us. I squeezed Patricia's hand in warning. Brianna ignored her and kissed the air near my cheek. Then she looked around. Where is the attorney? Here, Lenora said from the corner. Brianna startled. She had not seen her. Oh, good. I was hoping we could all be transparent. Lenora's face did not move. That would be refreshing. Wesley looked between them, sweating. A nurse came to prepare me for transport. The room became busy with checks, questions, and movement. Brianna stood back, watching everything. Just before they wheeled me away, she bent down and whispered near my ear. Don't worry, we'll take care of what needs taking care of. I looked at her. No, Brianna, you won't. Her smile held. We'll see. Those were the last words she said to me before surgery. When I woke up, the world was made of light, beeping, and pain. My throat felt scraped raw. My chest hurt in a deep, frightening way. My thoughts came slowly, like they had to walk through mud before reaching me. Someone was speaking. A nurse, then Patricia, then Wesley. I opened my eyes. He was there at the foot of the bed. So was Brianna. So was a man I did not know, wearing a gray suit and holding a notary stamp. Lenora was not there. Patricia stood near the window, furious, blocked by Brianna's body, and a nurse who looked overwhelmed. Wesley held papers in one hand. "Mom," he said, "it's okay. We're just fixing things so there's no confusion." My mouth was dry. I tried to speak. Only a rasp came out. Brianna leaned close. "Don't strain yourself, we understand." The gray-suited man looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Porter, I need to confirm that you understand the document." Patricia snapped. "She just came out of major heart surgery." Brianna turned. "She was awake before. The nurse said so." The nurse looked startled. I said she opened her eyes. Wesley's face was pale. "Mom, this version just makes me executor and simplifies the trust. It's what we discussed." I had never seen the document before. I tried to lift my hand. Pain shot through my chest. Brianna placed a pen between my fingers. "Just initial where indicated." That was when I understood something that still hurts to admit. My son was not watching my face. He was watching my hand. I managed one word. "Lenora." Brianna smiled. "She's unavailable." Patricia pushed forward. "She is downstairs with security because you lied to the front desk." Brianna's eyes flashed. Wesley raised his voice. Everybody calmed down. Mom gets confused when she's scared. There it was, the sentence Russell had heard forming weeks earlier. Mom gets confused. The gray-suited man looked at me. "Mrs. Porter, are you confused?" I looked at my son. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him if he remembered the day he fell off the dock and Harold jumped in with his wallet still in his pocket. I wanted to ask if he remembered building snowmen in the front yard. I wanted to ask if he remembered the father who warned him through a video he had never seen. But my body was too weak. My voice would not come. Brianna guided my hand toward the page. The door opened. Dr. Sloan walked in. She did not rush. She did not shout. She simply entered the room with such authority that everyone turned. Behind her stood Dr. Rowe, Lenora Pike, a hospital administrator, and two security officers. Dr. Sloan looked first at the pen in my hand, then at Brianna, then at Wesley. "Remove that pen from my patient's hand." Brianna straightened. "Doctor, this is a family legal matter." "No," Dr. Sloan said. "This is a patient safety matter." Wesley stepped forward. "My mother wanted." Dr. Sloan cut him off. "Your mother gave explicit written instruction that no estate documents were to be signed during hospitalization, surgery, anesthesia recovery, or medication impairment." The gray-suited man backed up. "I was told she requested this." Lenora stepped around Dr. Sloan and held out her hand. "I am Mrs. Porter's attorney. Who retained you?" The man looked at Wesley. Wesley looked at Brianna. Brianna said, "We were trying to prevent confusion." Dr. Rowe opened the yellow folder. "Mrs. Porter was evaluated this morning before surgery. She was clear, oriented, and specific. She stated she did not wish to alter her will, trust, power of attorney, or estate plan. She also identified Wesley and Brianna Porter as individuals who had pressured her regarding assets." Wesley looked like someone had struck him. "Mom?" I could not answer. Dr. Sloan placed the real papers on the tray table beside my bed. "This is the legal notice in her chart. This is the capacity evaluation. This is the medical directive. This is the instruction signed before anesthesia. Any attempt to obtain signatures now is invalid and will be reported." Lenora picked up the papers Wesley had brought. "Is this the altered will?" Brianna reached for it. Lenora pulled it back. "Don't." The room went silent, then Patricia said, voice shaking, "Get them out." Wesley stared at me. For one terrible second I saw the boy inside him, trapped behind the man his fear had built. "Mom," he whispered, "I thought." Brianna grabbed his arm. "Do not say anything." Dr. Sloan looked at security. "Escort them out." Wesley did not resist. Brianna did, not loudly. That would have made her look guilty. She lifted her chin and said, "This is elder manipulation by outside parties. We will be filing complaints." Lenora smiled thinly. "Please do. Put it in writing." That was the first time I saw Brianna afraid, not of yet. Afraid of paper. The next 3 days passed in pieces. Pain, sleep, ice chips, nurses. Patricia reading Psalms softly from her phone because she could not find my Bible. Dr. Sloan checking my incision. Dr. Rowe stopping by every evening. Lenora sitting in the corner one afternoon, making calls in a low voice. Wesley tried to visit twice. Patricia refused him both times. I did not ask her to. I did not stop her either. On the fourth day, when my mind felt fully clear, Lenora brought the altered will to my hospital room. Are you strong enough to review this? No. She started to put it away. I stopped her. But I need to. She sat beside my bed. The document named Wesley as sole beneficiary of all personal property, gave him immediate authority over Porter's Landing, removed the neutral trustee protections, and stated that any provision for Harper would be handled at the discretion of her father. At the discretion of her father, not even a direct gift to my granddaughter, just power handed to a man under the thumb of a woman who saw children as bargaining chips. My eyes burned. Did Wesley sign this? Lenora nodded. As preparer? Yes. Is that fraud? It can be, especially with the notary attempt and your written protections. We are already documenting. Will he go to prison? Lenora paused. Possibly. But intent, coercion, and Brianna's role will matter. I closed my eyes. I do not want to destroy my son. You are not destroying him, Maggie. He tried to steal from me while I was cut open. Yes, the truth sat between us like a stone. Lenora's voice softened. Sometimes accountability is the only door left back to decency. I turned my face toward the window. Outside, the hospital parking lot glittered after rain. What happens now? Now Brianna gets desperate. She was right. The first demand came 2 days after I got home. I was in my recliner with a pillow against my chest, moving like a woman made of cracked glass. Patricia was staying with me. Russell had installed a camera at my front porch. Lenora had already filed police reports regarding the hospital incident. At 8:12 p.m., my phone rang. Wesley. I let it ring. Then a text came. Mom, please talk to me. I did not answer. Another, Brianna says Lenora is poisoning you against us. I need to explain. Then another. We need access to Porter's Landing records to clear this up. There it was. Even after the hospital. Even after the doctor walked in. Even after security escorted them out. They still wanted the lake property. Patricia read the messages over my shoulder. That woman has the shame of a raccoon in a chicken coop. I almost smiled, then winced from the pain. A minute later, Brianna called from Wesley's phone. I answered and put it on speaker. Maggie, she said, voice tight with false calm. This has gone too far. I said nothing. You are recovering. You are emotional. Lenora and your sister are isolating you, Patricia whispered. Projection, Brianna continued. Wesley is your son. He has rights. I spoke slowly. He has responsibilities. He was trying to protect the family. From whom? From outdated restrictions that hurt everyone. Everyone, or you. Her breathing changed. You know, people in this town think you're sweet. They don't know how controlling you are. Maybe. You dangle inheritance over him and then act shocked when he wants clarity. I never dangled anything. You made him feel like a child. No, Brianna. You made him feel like being a husband required betraying his mother. There was a pause. Then her voice dropped. You should think carefully before you force us into a corner. Patricia sat up. I looked at the recording app Lenora had told me to use. It was running. What corner? You're old. You're recovering. You have property you cannot manage. If we have to petition for oversight, we will. Are you threatening guardianship? I am saying unstable people often don't know they're unstable. I felt cold, but not afraid. Thank you for clarifying. She hung up. Patricia looked at me. Did you get it? I lifted the phone. Yes. The next morning, Lenora listened to the recording. Her expression did not change, but she made 3 notes. She used the word unstable? Yes. And oversight? Yes. Good. Good. Bad behavior becomes useful when it gets specific. That same week, Russell called again. Maggie, somebody drove by Porter's Landing at 2:14 this morning. White SUV, slowed near the gate. Brianna? Camera caught the plate. It's hers. My stomach tightened. Did she get out? No, not then. Then, he paused. She came back at 4:03. This time, the camera showed Brianna stepping out with a flashlight and walking to the side gate. She wore a hooded jacket and gloves. She did not enter. She looked at the lock, lifted her phone, took pictures, then left. Why take pictures of the lock? I asked. Russell's answer was grim, to know what to cut. Lenora instructed us not to confront them. We let the evidence grow, she said. I hated that. There is a particular kind of suffering in waiting for someone to commit the wrong you know they are planning. It feels almost immoral, like you are allowing sin to ripen. But Lenora explained that we needed more than suspicion. We needed an act. Greed gets careless when it believes time is running out. She told me. Time was running out because Brianna had a secret of her own. The private investigator found it, His name was Marcus Bell, a former insurance investigator with patient eyes and a habit of speaking only after he had already thought 5 steps ahead. Lenora hired him after the hospital incident. I met him once at Lenora's office. He wore a gray jacket, carried a thin laptop, and treated me with the careful respect of a man who had seen families tear themselves apart over less than a fishing boat. I do not dig for gossip, he told me. I verify patterns. Then verify her, I said. 2 weeks later he did. Brianna had debts, not small debts, credit cards, a failed boutique staging business, a civil judgment from a former business partner, a personal loan tied to a luxury SUV, and most troubling, a recent inquiry with a lakefront developer under a company name that included Wesley's initials. Marcus placed the documents on Lenora's table. She has been representing to at least one developer that Porter's Landing will soon be available for acquisition. My hands went numb. She does not own it. No, Marcus said. But she suggested a family transfer was pending. Lenora looked at me. Maggie, this explains the urgency. What happens if she promised something she cannot deliver? Marcus said, then she needs control fast. And if she doesn't get it, she may try to create leverage. I thought of Harper. What kind of leverage? He did not answer quickly. Sometimes financial, sometimes emotional, sometimes false claims of elder incapacity, sometimes custody pressure. The room seemed to tilt. Custody. Lenora leaned forward. Not custody from you. Control over Wesley through Harper. That night, I called Wesley from Patricia's phone because he had stopped answering mine. He picked up sounding tired. Patricia, I can't. It's Mom. Silence. Then, very softly, are you okay? I am healing. I'm glad. His voice broke on the last word. I almost softened too much. Then I remembered the pen in my hand. Wesley, listen to me carefully. Brianna has been talking to a developer about Porter's Landing. He exhaled sharply. What? She has debts. She has made promises. That's not true. Ask her. You hired someone to investigate my wife? Yes. His silence turned heavy. That's insane. No. What happened in the hospital was insane. She said you would do this. What else did she say? That you'd try to scare me. That you'd make her look unstable. That you'd use Harper. I closed my eyes. Wesley, bring Harper to my house tomorrow. Come alone. I will show you everything. I can't. You can. No, Mom. I can't. Why? His voice dropped so low I could barely hear. Because she said if I take Harper to you, she'll file for separation and say I'm financially abusive. I sat very still. Are you financially abusive? No. Then why are you afraid? He did not answer. I heard a door close in the background, then Brianna's voice. Who is that? Wesley hung up. I did not sleep that night. At 2 in the morning, I got out of bed, held a pillow against my chest, and walked slowly to the kitchen. Patricia found me standing by the sink. You'll hurt yourself. I already am. She wrapped her robe tighter. What do you need? I need my son back. I know. I don't know if there is enough left. Patricia came beside me. When people are drowning, they sometimes push away the boat. I looked at her, and sometimes they pull the boat under. She nodded. That too. 3 days later, Harper called me. She was 6 years old by then, old enough to read simple books, young enough to believe adults meant what they said. Grandma? Hi, sweetheart. Her voice was tiny. Are you sick because of me? My heart stopped. What? No. Why would you say that? Mommy said stress makes hearts bad, and everybody is stressed because people won't share. I gripped the phone. Harper Grace, listen to Grandma. My heart needed fixing because bodies get older, not because of you. Never because of you. She sniffled. Daddy cries in the bathroom. I closed my eyes. Is Daddy there? No, Mommy is outside talking loud. Are you safe? I think so. That answer told me enough. Can you give Daddy a message? Okay. Tell him, Grandma, said the dock light is still on. Harper repeated it slowly. The dock light is still on. It was something Harold used to say whenever Wesley got lost in the dark as a teenager, literally or otherwise. Once, when Wesley drove home after curfew and got his truck stuck near the lake, Harold found him because he had left the dock light burning. No matter how late, son, if the dock light is on, you can come home. I hoped Wesley remembered. He did, at 11:47 that night. There was a knock on my back door. Russell saw him on camera and called before I could stand. It's Wesley. He's alone. Want me there? Yes. Russell arrived in 4 minutes. He must have already been dressed. Patricia opened the door. Wesley stood on the steps, soaked from rain, holding a backpack and shaking like a man with fever. I didn't bring Harper, he said immediately. Brianna took her to her mother's. I stepped into the kitchen. Come in. He looked at Russell, then Patricia, then me. I don't know who I can trust, I said. Start with the people who are not asking you to steal. He folded, not physically, but something inside him gave way. He sat at the kitchen table and put his face in his hands. I signed things. I sat across from him. What things? I don't even know anymore. Lenora arrived 20 minutes later in a coat over pajamas, carrying a legal pad. Wesley told us everything, not all at once. Shame slows speech. Brianna had been telling him for months that I was manipulating him. She said Harold had never respected him. She said the trust proved it. She said real men protect their household, not their mother's feelings. She said Porter's Landing could clear their debts, pay for Harper's private school, and launch a development partnership that would make them wealthy. When he resisted, she froze him out. When he questioned her, she cried. When he tried to visit me, she accused him of choosing his mother over his wife. Then she showed him bills. So many bills. She said she took debt to make us look successful. Wesley whispered. For my career. For our image. She said I owed her. Did you know she contacted a developer? Lenora asked. His face crumpled. Not at first. Then she said it was just exploratory. Did you prepare the altered will? He nodded, crying silently. She had a template. She said it wouldn't count unless Mom agreed after surgery. She said we were only preparing. Then at the hospital, she told me if we didn't do it then, Patricia and Lenora would lock me out forever. Who brought the notary? Brianna. Did you tell him your mother requested the document? He covered his mouth. Yes. Lenora wrote that down. Wesley looked at me. Mom, I knew it was wrong when I saw you, I knew. But she was right there, and I felt like if I stopped, everything would explode. I thought I would feel anger in that moment. I did. But underneath it was a grief so deep it almost had no sound. Wesley, I said, everything already had exploded. You were just pretending the house was still standing. He bowed his head. I'm sorry. I did not say it was okay, because it was not. I love you, I said, and you are going to tell the truth legally. He looked scared. Will I be arrested? I don't know. Lenora said, your cooperation matters. So does honesty from this moment forward. Wesley nodded. I'll do whatever I have to. Russell, who had been standing quietly near the counter, asked one question. Does Brianna know you're here? Wesley looked up. No. At that exact moment, his phone began ringing. Brianna. No one moved. It rang until it stopped. Then a text came. Where are you? Another. Do not be with her, another. Wesley, answer me right now. Then, if you are at your mother's, you will regret it. Lenora looked at Russell. Screenshot everything. Russell did. Then the camera alert sounded on my phone. Motion at Porter's Landing. The screen showed Brianna's white SUV at the gate. It was 12:36 a.m. Rain streaked across the camera lens. Brianna stepped out in a dark jacket. A man got out of the passenger side carrying bolt cutters. Wesley stood so fast his chair hit the floor. That's her brother. Russell was already calling the sheriff's office. Lenora touched my shoulder. Maggie, stay here. But I was already standing. No, Patricia blocked me. You just had heart surgery. My husband's papers are in that office. Russell spoke into the phone, calm and precise. Active break-in at Porter's Landing off County Road 6. 2 suspects. Cameras recording. Possible attempted theft of trust documents. On the phone screen, Brianna's brother cut the chain at the gate. The gate swung open. The trap Harold had predicted was closing. But watching it happen did not feel satisfying. It felt like seeing a disease become visible on an X-ray. We drove in Russell's truck because he refused to let me drive. Patricia sat beside me in the back, holding my arm every time we hit a bump. Wesley rode in front, silent and shaking. By the time we reached the road above Porter's Landing, sheriff's deputies had arrived without lights flashing. Russell had requested quiet approach. The rain had slowed to mist. We parked far enough away to watch. Through the front window of the bait shop, I saw flashlight beams moving. Brianna and her brother were inside. They had broken the side door. Russell's phone displayed the interior camera. Brianna moved straight to the back office, straight to it. No wandering, no searching shelves, no pretending. She knew where she wanted to go. Her brother pried at the file cabinet first. Not there, she snapped. Then she pulled the old calendar off the wall. My breath caught. How did she know? I whispered. Wesley closed his eyes. I told her dad kept records in the back office. Brianna found the plywood seam. She knelt. But she did not have the combination. Her brother lifted a crowbar. That was when deputies entered. Sheriff's office. Hands where we can see them, Brianna screamed, not in fear, in rage. What are you doing? This is family property. Deputy Monroe, who had known Harold for years, said, Mom, step away from the safe. My husband owns this. Wesley opened the truck door and stepped into the rain. I followed slowly despite Patricia's protest. Brianna saw him through the doorway. Her face changed from fury to calculation in half a second. Wesley, she cried, tell them. He stood in the mud, rain dripping from his hair. For a moment I thought he might break again. Then he said, It's not mine. Brianna stared. What? It's not mine. And you knew that. Her brother lowered the crowbar. The deputy took it from him. Brianna pointed at me. She's manipulating him. She's been trying to destroy our marriage. I stepped inside Porter's Landing for the first time since surgery. The place smelled like wet wood and lake air. I looked at the broken door, the muddy footprints, the safe Harold had hidden, the woman standing over it like she had found buried treasure. You came here for papers, I said. Brianna's hair had come loose from its clip. I came here for what belongs to my family. No, I said. You came here for what you could sell. She laughed once, sharp and ugly. You sit on land you don't even use while your son drowns. Wesley flinched. I turned to him. Do you hear that? That is not love. That is a bill collector wearing a wedding ring. Brianna lunged verbally, not physically. You old women always think suffering makes you noble. Harold is dead. This place is dead. You would rather rot beside fishing worms than let your son build something. That was when Deputy Monroe said, Mom, you need to stop talking. But she could not. Greed had opened her mouth and pride kept it moving. You think a trust can stop development? You think some dead man's sentimental paperwork matters? I have buyers. I have plans. Wesley was finally going to be somebody. Wesley looked at her. Because of land, because of opportunity. For you. For us. For you, he said again, and this time his voice did not shake. Deputy Monroe handcuffed Brianna's brother first. Then Brianna, she kept saying, This is a misunderstanding. But the cameras had recorded everything. The cut gate, the broken door, the safe. Her own words about buyers and plans. Twist 3 had unfolded exactly as Harold feared. Her attempt to steal the asset created the evidence needed to expose her. But the real proof was not in the papers. It was in the place she never thought to respect. The following Monday, Lenora arranged a meeting at her office. Present were me, Wesley, Patricia, Russell, Marcus Bell, Deputy Monroe, and eventually, under advice of counsel, Brianna's attorney. Brianna did not attend at first. She had been released pending charges, but an emergency protective order prevented contact with me and restricted her access to Porter's Landing. Wesley looked like a man walking through the ashes of his own house. He had moved into a motel. Harper was with Brianna's mother temporarily, pending family court orders. That part hurt the worst, not because the grandmother was cruel, but because Harper was confused and scared. Lenora began by opening Harold's trust file. I want everyone in this room to understand what Porter's Landing is and what it is not. She placed the deed on the table. The property is owned by the Porter Family Preservation Trust. Mrs. Porter has lifetime benefit. Upon her death, control does not pass directly to Wesley Porter. It moves to a trustee for the benefit of Harper Grace Porter and any future descendants under strict conditions. Wesley stared at the paper. I was never getting it? You were never getting unrestricted control, Lenora said. You could have managed it responsibly. You could have earned trustee participation, but you could not sell it to satisfy debt or transfer it to a spouse. He covered his face. Brianna's attorney, a tired-looking man named Mr. Havers, asked, And the alleged safe contents? Lenora nodded to me. I gave permission. Russell and Marcus had already documented the safe after the break-in. That day, Lenora showed the contents one by one. Copies of the trust, the original purchase records, insurance protections, Harold's letter, the video transcript, business ledgers proving the property's independent status, security installation records, a sealed statement from Harold expressing concern about future coercion, my medical capacity forms, the hospital legal notice, my journal, screenshots of Brianna's texts, Russell's gas station statement, Marcus's report showing Brianna's debts and developer contact, the break-in footage, the recording of Brianna threatening guardianship. By the time Lenora finished, Mr. Havers looked like a man, wishing he had chosen a different profession. He cleared his throat. My client maintains that she believed she had marital interest through her husband. Lenora looked at Wesley. Did you tell her she had ownership interest? Wesley swallowed. No. Did you tell her your mother gave permission to enter Porter's Landing? No. Did you tell her to bring bolt cutters? No. Mr. Havers shifted. Mr. Porter is under emotional pressure from his mother. Wesley lifted his head. No. I was under emotional pressure from my wife. My mother gave me chances to tell the truth. The room went quiet. That was the first time I felt something like hope, not happiness. Hope. There is a difference. The legal process did not move like television. Nobody slammed a gavel and fixed our lives in an hour. It was slow, humiliating, expensive, full of interviews, statements, court dates, family services, and nights when I wondered whether truth was enough. Brianna was charged with breaking and entering, attempted theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder exploitation-related offenses connected to the hospital incident. Her brother took a plea first. That turned out to be another crack in her wall. He admitted she had told him there were estate papers in the safe that needed to disappear before. The old lady's lawyer locked everything down. Those words became important. Wesley cooperated with investigators. Because he had signed the altered will and lied to the notary, he faced consequences too. Lenora warned him that truth would not erase what he did. He accepted that. I don't want to hide anymore, he told me. But accepting consequences did not make him instantly healed. Some days he called me and cried. Some days he defended Brianna out of habit. Some days he hated himself so deeply I worried he would disappear into it. Therapy helped. A men's support group at a church in Johnson City helped. Living alone helped. Seeing Harper during supervised visits helped most of all. The first time Harper came back to my house after everything, she stood on the porch holding a stuffed rabbit and looking older than 6. Are people still mad? She asked. I knelt carefully, still tender from surgery. Some people are sad. Some people are sorry. Some people are learning. Is Mommy bad? No question has ever hurt me more. I could have answered from anger. I did not. Mommy made choices that hurt people, I said. Grown-ups have to answer for choices. Harper thought about that. Daddy cries less now. I'm glad. Can we go see the ducks? So, we did. I took her to Porter's Landing on a bright May afternoon. The broken door had been repaired. The gate had a new lock. The dock light worked. The bait shop was still closed, but not dead. Harper ran ahead, then stopped at the door. Grandma? Yes, is this place scary? I looked at the sign Harold had painted years ago, Porter's Landing. No, I said. Some scary things happened here, but the place itself is good. She nodded like that made sense. Children often understand what adults complicate. Inside, I showed her the shelves, the gold bell, the counter where Wesley used to count worms in little cups and declare himself assistant manager. I did not show her the safe. Not yet. In the back room, I found the old photo Harold kept taped inside the cabinet. Wesley at 8 years old, barefoot on the dock, holding up a fish so small it was almost funny. Grinning like he had conquered the lake, Harper looked at it. Daddy? Yes, he looks happy. He was. Will he be happy again? I touched her hair. I hope so. What about you? I did not expect that. I looked out the small office window at the lake. I'm learning. Healing did not look like victory. It looked like small ordinary things. Wesley bringing groceries and leaving them on my porch because he was not ready to come in. Then coming in but staying only 10 minutes. Then sitting at the kitchen table and drinking coffee without checking his phone. Then saying, I don't know how to forgive myself. And me saying, start by becoming someone who does not repeat it. It looked like Harper laughing again. It looked like Patricia going back to Ohio, but calling every morning for 2 months. It looked like Russell stopping by Porter's Landing to check the cameras, even when nothing needed checking. One afternoon in June, I found him replacing a porch board at the bait shop. You know I can pay someone, I said. He glanced up. You can. But then I'd have to find a hobby. I sat in a lawn chair near the door. The lake was blue that day. Boats moved slowly in the distance. Somewhere a man shouted to another man about a cooler. Russell hammered a nail. Harold would hate what happened, he said. Yes, but he'd like that the place held. I looked at him. The place, the promise. I watched the water. Yes, he would. Russell did not try to become more than he was in my life. I appreciated that. Some people rush into broken places carrying affection like a tool they think can fix everything. Russell simply showed up, tightened screws, checked locks, and asked if I had eaten lunch. That was enough by August. The court process reached the hearing that mattered most. It was not the criminal trial. That would come later. This was a probate and protective order hearing, where Brianna's attorney tried to argue that my actions had alienated Wesley, that Lenora had overstepped, and that the trust restrictions were being used vindictively. Brianna attended in a navy dress with pearls. She looked like a woman prepared to be believed. I wore a gray suit Patricia had chosen. Wesley sat behind me, not beside Brianna. That alone made her face harden. The courtroom was small, with wood benches and fluorescent lights. Nothing like television. No dramatic music. No gasps from a jury. Just paperwork, tired officials, and truth being asked to stand up straight. Brianna's attorney spoke first. He described her as a concerned wife trying to help a family plan responsibly during a medical crisis. He said the break-in was a misunderstanding caused by Wesley's belief that he had access. He suggested I had become paranoid after surgery and overly influenced by Lenora, Patricia, and Russell. Then Lenora stood. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. She entered the hospital notice, the capacity statement, the altered will, the notary timeline, the recording, the texts, the investigator's report, the developer emails, the break-in footage, the brother's statement. Then she played a short section of Harold's video. Not all of it, just enough. Harold appeared on the courtroom screen, thinner than I like to remember, but steady. "If someone tries to change your will while you are ill," he said, "or says you are confused when you are not, remember this. You owe nobody your silence when their plans require your weakness." Brianna looked away. Wesley began to cry silently behind me. The judge watched the screen, then looked down at the file. Lenora called Dr. Sloan. My surgeon sat in the witness chair in a dark blazer, her hair pulled back. She explained that I was in immediate post-operative recovery when the signing attempt occurred. She explained that I was under pain medication and medically vulnerable. She explained that I had clearly documented before surgery that no estate changes were to occur during hospitalization. Brianna's attorney asked, "Doctor, is it possible Mrs. Porter was awake enough to consent?" Dr. Sloan looked at him. Awake and capable are not the same thing. That sentence settled over the courtroom. Then Dr. Rowe testified, then Russell, then Wesley. My son walked to the witness chair like each step cost him. Lenora asked him simple questions. "Did your mother ask you to prepare a new will?" "No." "Did she ask you to bring a notary to the hospital?" "No." "Did you tell the notary she wanted to sign?" "Yes." "Was that true?" "No." "Why did you do it?" Wesley looked down. "Because my wife pressured me, and because I was weak." Brianna made a small sound. Her attorney touched her arm. Wesley continued, "That does not excuse me. I knew my mother would never sign those papers if she was clear. I knew it was wrong." Lenora's voice softened. "Did your mother try to turn you against your wife?" "No." "What did she try to do?" He looked at me then. "She tried to warn me." I could not stop the tears. Brianna's attorney stood for cross-examination. "Mr. Porter, isn't it true your mother has always controlled you through guilt?" Wesley wiped his face. "No." "Isn't it true your father's trust made you feel inadequate?" "Yes." "So your wife was responding to your pain." Wesley looked at Brianna. For the first time, he did not look afraid of her. "She used it." The attorney paused. "She encouraged me to see my mother as the enemy, so I would hand her control. That's not responding to pain. That's aiming it." The courtroom went still. Brianna's mask cracked then. Only for a second, but I saw it. The judge saw it too. When it was my turn, I did not say much. I did not need to tell the court I was betrayed. The evidence had already said it. Lenora asked me, "Mrs. Porter, what do you want?" I looked at Wesley, then at Brianna, then at the judge. "I want my granddaughter protected. I want my medical decisions respected. I want my property left as my husband and I intended. I want my son held accountable without being destroyed. And I want Brianna Porter kept away from me, my records, and Porter's Landing." The judge nodded. Brianna watched me with hatred she could no longer hide. The ruling did not solve everything, but it closed the door she had been trying to force open. The altered will was declared invalid and referred as part of the criminal investigation. The trust protections were affirmed. A protective order remained in place. Brianna was barred from Porter's Landing, my home, my bank, and any contact regarding my estate. Wesley was removed from any temporary authority and required to continue cooperating, counseling, and legal restitution steps. A neutral trustee was confirmed for future management if needed. Later, in the hallway, Brianna broke the protective order in front of everyone. She walked toward me fast, heels striking the floor. "You think you won," she said. Russell stepped between us. Lenora lifted her phone. Careful. Brianna ignored her. You ruined your son's life. Wesley came from behind me. No, he said. I helped you try to ruin hers. She turned on him. You are nothing without me. He flinched. Then he breathed. Maybe for the first time in years. I was almost nothing with you. A deputy approached. Brianna saw him and stepped back, but it was too late. The violation was witnessed and recorded. Another mistake. Another piece of proof. Greed does not know when to stop, because stopping feels too much like losing. 3 months later, Brianna accepted a plea agreement on some charges, while others remained tied to restitution and probation conditions. Her brother's statement, the footage, and the hospital incident left her very little room to perform innocence. She did not go to prison for years like movies might promise, but she did not walk away clean either. She received probation, fines, restitution for damage to Porter's Landing, mandatory no-contact orders, and a criminal record that ended her real estate marketing work for a long time. The attempted elder exploitation finding damaged her reputation worse than any gossip could. The developer cut ties. Her debts remained hers. Wesley filed for divorce. It was not quick. It was not clean. Brianna fought over custody, money, furniture, even Harper's school backpack. Control once exposed does not become graceful. It becomes petty. But Wesley did something I did not expect. He stopped trying to look good. In court filings, in mediation, in therapy, he admitted what he had done. Not in a dramatic speech, not to impress anyone. He simply stopped lying. That mattered. By winter, he had a small apartment near Harper's school. He worked a steady job managing logistics for a local supply company. Not glamorous, honest. He sold the expensive truck Brianna had insisted they needed and bought a used Honda with a dent near the passenger door. One evening in December, he came by my house with Harper. She ran inside carrying a paper snowflake. Grandma, we made decorations. Wesley stood in the doorway, uncertain. Can I come in? I looked at him. The answer used to be automatic. He was my son. Of course he could come in. Now trust had to walk where love used to run. Yes, I said. Come in. He took off his shoes without being asked. That made me smile because Harold had tried for 30 years to teach him that Harper decorated my windows with crooked snowflakes. Wesley helped me carry boxes from the closet. Later, after she fell asleep on the couch, he sat across from me at the kitchen table. I went to Porter's Landing today, he said. I stayed quiet. Russell was there. He let me sweep. That was kind. Wesley nodded. I found Dad's marks on the back counter, where he measured me. I remembered, pencil lines on wood, ages 5 through 14. I forgot about them, he said. I didn't. His eyes filled. I hated that place because I thought it proved Dad didn't trust me with something better. I reached for my tea. What do you think now? He looked toward the living room where Harper slept. I think he trusted the place more than he trusted my pride. That was honest enough to hurt. He loved you, I said. I know. Do you? He nodded slowly. I'm starting to. Then he pulled something from his coat pocket, a small brass key. I found this in an envelope Russell said was in the old drawer. It had my name on it. I knew the key. Harold had kept it for the dock light box. Wesley placed it on the table. There was a note, too. He unfolded it with careful hands. Harold's handwriting, shaky but readable. Wes, if you are holding this, you came back to the landing after losing your way. Good, the light still works. Fix it when it burns out. That is what men do. They do not own every shore they stand on. They keep the light working for the ones coming behind them. Your dad. Wesley cried then. Not like a boy trying to escape blame. Like a man finally letting truth pass through him. I cried too. For Harold. For Wesley, for all the years pride had stolen. For the fact that love had survived but not unchanged. People sometimes ask whether I forgave my son. That question is too small for what happened. Forgiveness is not a light switch. It is more like physical therapy after surgery. Painful movements, small progress, setbacks, days when you think you are stronger, then reach for something and feel the wound pull. I forgave him in pieces. The first piece came when he told the truth under oath. The second came when he apologized to Harper in words a child could understand. The third came when he stopped asking what he would inherit and started asking what needed fixing. The rest is still coming. As for Porter's Landing, it reopened this spring, not as it was before. Nothing ever returns exactly. Russell helped repair the dock. Wesley painted the sign. Harper chose a little blue stool to keep behind the counter because she said every good store needs a child boss. Patricia came down for opening weekend and complained that Tennessee coffee is too weak, then drank 3 cups. We sell bait again. Coffee too. A few snacks. Boat parts by order. Nothing fancy. On the wall behind the register hangs a framed photograph of Harold, smiling in his brown cap. Below it, a small sign says, "The dock light stays on." Only a few people know what that means. I know. Wesley knows. Harper will one day. The safe is still in the back office, but I do not think of it as a trap anymore. I think of it as a promise Harold kept after death. Inside are still copies of papers, letters, proof, and protections. But the place does not feel like fear now. It feels like memory. One afternoon not long ago, Harper asked me why grown-ups write wills. She was coloring at the counter while I sorted receipts. Wesley was outside helping an older man with a trolling motor. I thought carefully. Because people want their love to have instructions when they are not here to explain it. She looked up. Was Grandpa Harold's will love? I swallowed. Yes, it was. Even when Daddy got mad. Especially then. She went back to coloring. Children accept truth when it is simple. Adults spend years trying to make truth serve them before they finally let it teach them. I am not the same woman I was before surgery. I move slower now. I rest when my body tells me to. I keep my medical papers updated. I do not apologize for locks, cameras, attorneys, or boundaries. I learned that being kind does not require being available for harm. I also learned that a person can love someone deeply and still refuse to hand them a weapon. My son changed my will while I was in surgery. That is the sentence people remember. But the deeper truth is this. He had been changed long before he touched those papers. Changed by shame, changed by pressure, changed by a woman who learned where his insecurity lived and built a house there. The doctor walking in with the real papers did not just save my estate. It exposed the illness in my family. Not the kind repaired with stitches or medicine. The kind that grows in silence when greed is called concern and control is called love. Proof did what shouting could not. Patience did what panic could not. Harold's old planning did what my broken heart could not do alone. If you have ever watched someone you love disappear inside another person's control, you know why I waited. You know why I wrote dates in a notebook. You know why I kept the papers safe. You know why I did not scream, when screaming would have only made me look unstable to people waiting to use that word. And if you are watching from somewhere tonight, remember this. Real love does not ask you to become weak so someone else can feel powerful. Real family does not need you unconscious before it respects your wishes. Real protection may look cold to outsiders, but sometimes a locked drawer, a signed document, a loyal witness, and a doctor brave enough to walk into the room are the only things standing between your family and the people who plan to profit from your silence. The dock light is still on, but now, so are the cameras.